the confusion came from like, this is not me. This score is not how I do life. Already at that age, just putting so much pressure on myself that I know I'm better than this, but this is what's looking me in the mirror.
What happens when the result in front of you doesn't reflect who you know you are? Today we're joined by Emily Rovere, an osteopath, business owner and lifelong learner who shares what it felt like to open her results, feel deflated and confused, and slowly realise that one score wasn't the full story.
In this conversation, Emily reflects on learning how she learns, asking for help, and finding a path that truly fits, offering reassurance for students, parents, and educators navigating uncertainty. If results season has left you or your young person questioning what comes next, this episode will help you breathe a little easier.
For any high achievers out there, this is a really fascinating episode too, because Emily is not only really passionate and really dedicated and incredibly intelligent, but she's a real high achiever, and even she had to navigate and change her path. So for anyone out there listening, or if you know a high achiever out there, this one might really resonate with you. Welcome to this episode of More Than a Score. Em, we're on.
We're on.
We are on. Emily Rovere.
Yes.
It's lovely. It's lovely. I don't know your middle name, but
Kate.
Emily Kate Rovere.
It's either Kate or Louise. You're a certain type of, or Anne maybe?
Millennial?
Millennial, a certain millennial. Yeah, millennials, it's Louise, Kate or Anne, I feel like.
Well, I've got a double banger. I'm Daniel John Hamlet Steele.
Okay.
So they
Do you know, my husband has a theory to never trust anyone with two first names for their names.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
As
All right,
in the
well,
last,
hold on for marrying your husband then, or I'll change
as
my
in the
name.
last name is the first name you mean, or?
Yes. So it's like what is it? Say it again.
So Daniel, and then I've got two middle names.
Two middle names. Well,
Yeah.
that's probably a whole nother level.
Yeah. My dad.
Even more untrustworthy.
Previously, Hamlet was the name of every firstborn son.
Yeah.
I feel like he's not a character you want to emulate, though.
Hamlet? Are we going down the Shakespeare track?
Yeah,
Sorry, mate.
that's sorry. The teacher in me is like,
Emily Revere.
Yeah.
So I'm very lucky. I get to do the introduction for each guest. And I try and make it a little bit different. So stick with me here if that's okay. So I've got from reading and what I've heard about you and some reading and research. Fiercely determined and committed learner, an open book seeking to help others, a lover of anatomy, people and getting the most out of life, a master of osteopathy, mum of one, grit exemplified with an added flair of entrepreneurialism. Welcome to More Than a Score, Em.
I think that's probably one of the most amazing introductions I've ever received. Thank you so much.
he puts so much effort into it, Em, honestly, and you love doing it, don't you?
Don't we love that now we've made this introduction about me? This is
That's nice.
We could just end it there.
just done. And thanks everyone. Follow us along that. No, I think I really do think so. I'm really excited to hear about your journey and the pathway, and I do think there's something in here. We love a good thread and theme.
Yeah.
Grit exemplified really stood out. But Em, when you think back, were you happy with your score?
No. And I actually loved reflecting on your questions, and it took me right back to the moment when I opened. Like I can remember exactly where I was. I can remember how I felt. I remember that number popping up and feeling so defined by it just not being what I wanted it to be. And I think I was always type A personality. Even back then I was so hard on myself, and I was just trying to navigate through life at that age. And it was like this number just came up, and the feeling just deflated and confused. And it was so interesting reflecting on that moment when I was preparing to come here today, because it really is such a small moment in time, isn't it? But at the time it feels like your world. And so I remember it very clearly.
Were you at home? Whereabouts were you? Because something that I had was a really strange thing where some milk bars and some newsagents seemed to get early delivery of the newspapers.
Right.
Where like they opened up, maybe that was the results and also like offers and things. I remember people all getting notified. I also had my auntie calling me constantly.
Yeah.
My mum did it. I don't know if my mum told my auntie.
I remember having a really clear boundary around I was just going to wait until I could log in but I know lots of people went to the milk bars early to try and get the paper at midnight. I know a lot of people called up because you could get it earlier. This is the hard work because we were the first generation where we had direct contact to each other, right?
Yes.
Of like being able to message each other directly. It was a lot of pressure.
So where were you as you open it up and you felt this overwhelming
Yes,
sense of
so
being
it
defined?
was the same as you. I just waited until I could log in.
Mm.
I was at my boyfriend's house at the time, and that was really like a second home for me. I loved his mum, and it was a really unstable time in my house. So I remember I woke up in the morning, I went into their office, I logged in on their computer, and, you know, they were waiting outside for me to come out with the news.
So you're logging in while you know there's this whole other group that are standing there and went, oh, it's so much pressure.
And I remember opening it and just seeing, I didn't even see the whole number. I just saw the first number, and in my mind it was like it just wasn't the number that I wanted it to be. And to be honest though, I think what number actually would have made you happy? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what did it need to be to generate a certain feeling of worthiness?
Yes.
Whatever it might have been. But I just remember at that moment that just this chain reaction of thoughts of, well, that's not enough to get into this course, and what's plan B, plan C, how am I going to navigate it? It was just a real moment of, I felt like I'd failed myself.
Yeah. And so then what happens? You see that first digit and you're like, that's not good enough. And then you have to walk out of the room to the family.
I think I cried. I think I cried. And I don't remember actually telling my parents, which is funny. I just remember being there and, being supported by my boyfriend and his mum at the time. And of course I would have had a conversation with my parents later, but it was a bit blurry from there. But I do remember then just sort of having some quiet time to process it, and then just going straight into problem solving mode, which is kind of, I feel like, a skill that I've developed over the years. It was like, okay, just process it. And now what's the plan?
Can I ask you said the word confused when you first said that you saw the score. What was so confusing?
I think that if I look back to that time in my life, I remember studying and working hard, but I can now see that I actually wasn't effective. And that it's such a great lesson in life, isn't it? That you can spend time working hard but not necessarily be effective. And I've learnt that many times. And I think back now and I remember thinking, well, inside, like intuitively, I remember doing certain topics and thinking, I'm not retaining this information. Like I'm sitting here and I'm listening and I'm reading and I'm trying to learn, but I'm not retaining it. And I didn't feel confident to speak up about that at the time. So I was 18 very early in year 12. So there is a little caveat, guys, that I did spend a little bit of time at Metro on the weekends. I did also have...
What a great spot.
I know, right? I did also have my license. I did have a boyfriend that was older than me. And it was a very unstable time at home with my parents. So I did get distracted, if I'm being honest, but I still tried hard to complete year 12 and to do it well, and I knew the pathway I wanted to take. But I do remember trying to process everything that was going on, and I was so confused because I'd always been able to do well at school when I applied myself, but I just remember this time I was like, I just can't execute to my best ability through this exam period. I just couldn't figure out what it was. And obviously things really go to another level when you get to that year 11 and 12. And it was a real time for me where I don't think I'd figured out how best I was learning or how I could retain information, and certainly how I could give my best in the moment. So the confusion came from like, this is not me. Like this score is not how I do life. Already at that age, just putting so much pressure on myself that I know I'm better than this, but this is what's looking me in the mirror.
Yeah. What advice do you give to somebody who perhaps is facing struggle for the first time? Because as you said, you moved through school, everything was easy enough. If you wanted to execute something, you kind of were able to do that and get the result you wanted. And then you hit this really pivotal time where everyone tells you this is where it matters and you can't. Like, what advice do you give somebody who might be facing that?
Oh, if I could speak to my younger self, I would say definitely speak up, because the support would have been there, but probably ego, fear of being judged, fear of being good enough, like all those fears really started to pop up for me at that age of like, well, what will someone think if I say that I'm struggling, or if it's hard, or if it's not landing for me? But of course, as soon as you can be open enough to seek the support, that it would have been there tenfold. But I was just not confident enough to ask for help.
I'm fascinated for the person listening to get an idea of like, who would you go to?
I think,
and what would you actually say?
I think at the time there would obviously be like a good teacher. I only had one or two that I feel really saw me, like really knew me as a person, and I could have easily gone to them, but I just pretended everything was fine. I just, at home it was really unstable, so I don't think my parents were the best ones to go to, because that would have just added more to their plate at the time. But school, there would have been so much. So I went to a really great Catholic girls' school. Was it the best school for me? That's probably for another whole podcast, but it was a good school, and there would have been support there if I had have opened up for conversation.
Did you talk to your grandma? I remember in some of your pre-pod that you spoke so warmly about your grandma.
No, because I just wouldn't have wanted to. She just always thought that I was, she put me up on such a pedestal. My whole family did. I was the oldest grandchild. I felt like I was a real example for the rest of the grandchildren. And like now reflecting back, I think I wouldn't have told anyone, which I clearly didn't. I didn't ask for help. I probably might have spoken to my boyfriend about it at the time, but he wasn't very academic. So, he was a great support, but yeah, he wasn't really driven like I was. So, probably not the greatest influence at that time of life. But
talk to me about the idea of feeling, rightly or wrongly, that you were put on a pedestal. How does that impact you at such a young age?
Yes, I feel like only child, parents were working class, like I still don't understand, or I can't grasp how they afforded to put me through private school, and I never missed out on anything. But yet they really struggled, and I think ultimately that's why they didn't end up together, because the struggles just got too much. So I feel like I was always just trying to keep our family unit happy through achievement. So if I had things, if I was doing well at sport, if I was doing well at school, and if Dad, he was like ex-army, ex-fire brigade, so like a very hard man that was like, you take the position as school captain and you will play this, you'll do this, you'll have your own business. And it taught me a lot of resilience, but it also probably created this feeling inside me that there was like this expectation of you have to do your best, be the best, like it was just black and white. And Mum was kind of the opposite, really loving and nurturing. So there was a really great contrast between the two of them, but I was trying to keep us happy through achievement. And then being the oldest grandchild, I think that, the same thing went with my grandparents. They were my biggest cheerleader. They would watch all of my sport. They would come to school assemblies, and just always felt like I wanted to be up there, but there was that pressure internally. And even today, I'm really close with my cousins because I don't have any brothers or sisters. And, all of us are a little bit that way. Like we always joke about, my cousin is a fantastic netballer. If you follow netball, she's captain of the Melbourne Vixens. I was like the golden grandchild until Kate knocked me off the perch. Like I have this
good on you, Kate.
Yeah. So yeah, but the pressure is real, and yeah, it flows on, doesn't it? Because I always have conversations with my husband. He's like, just let me do it, Em, or let me look after you, or let me handle it. But there's this like inner independence and strength, and like I can do it for myself, that I really struggle to sometimes let him.
Yeah.
And that's a real interesting energy between male and female energy too. So I feel like it's been a lifelong learning thing.
It's hard too. Like, I think based on what you're saying, there's also a key part of your identity, which is I'm a high performer, or I do well, or I'm the achiever. There's a really amazing book called Thanks for the Feedback by Douglas Stone and Sheila Heen. And in that, they talk about like 3 triggers that can affect you with feedback. And one of them is if something pushes on your identity. So from working in schools, anytime we were giving teachers feedback, we always made sure it was like invitational, like they asked for it. But if you think you're a really great teacher and then you get some form of feedback through a kid or some sort of experience that questions your identity, like, I thought I was a really good teacher, and you're getting this feedback that tells you maybe you're not, it has a really big impact on you. So it causes you to guess your identity. So if you're like a big overachiever or, you know, a really high achiever, and suddenly year 11 or year 12 is hard, you start to go, well, hang on, I thought I was really good at this. I thought I was a really good learner. What does this mean?
And then also you're literally looking at a score that everyone tells you, well, that's the moment that identifies your entire academic journey. To see that and not identify with that, there's a whole heap of things that you've got to uncover, right?
Absolutely. I can remember always participating in like Tournament of the Minds and like any external learning that I could. And so you're right, it's like getting to the very end and thinking, well, this is what it was all for. Like, where did it kind of go wrong? Or where did it get off track? And it wasn't a horrendous score, but it just wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, we all have the goal because the course that you want to get into has the baseline. I can't even remember what that score actually was that I needed, but I wanted to get into biomedical science at Deakin, and it meant that I just had to change my path and do a few bridging courses and go into another course and blah, blah, blah. Then it was like 8 years of university instead of 4.
Yeah.
So
I love that you just said just a few bridging courses.
Yes.
So like a lot of the time I can imagine even just doing one bridging course for people is a barrier that would probably stop them.
Yes.
And you're like, oh no, so I'll just do a few to get to the thing that I want.
When were you doing biomed at Deakin? What years? I only asked because I did a science degree and I did a lot of the subjects with the biomed students at Deakin. That's what I'm asking.
Right. Well, like so
You're allowed to ask, Laura.
Yeah. Dan's like, stop making it about you, for goodness sake.
early 2000s.
Okay. I would have been there 2003.
Yeah, well, I reckon it would have been 2000. Well, I had to go into like biological science.
Yeah,
it was 2001, 2002.
Yeah,
so funny if we crossed over.
I reckon we could have, because I still remember they made me do chemistry, which I hated, and I didn't want to do it. And I remember being in my labs, and none of my labs worked. I had like
Sorry,
we were meant to.
What do you mean by in my labs?
Like
Someone
you do.
isn't there.
Oh well, you do your like laboratory experiments. So you might do 3 hours a week of being in so the experiments were 3 hours. And I remember whatever you were supposed to have at the end of it, mine was either burnt or it didn't work or like the colour didn't happen, and I was so terrible. And I would buddy up the biochem people. I was like, what's happening here?
Sounds like life skills. This is what we're hearing.
Yeah. Oh, I was so bad at chemistry. Oh my gosh.
Good memory though.
Her name was Judy, the person who taught. I still remember. She had this short bob hair.
Yeah.
I still remember her, and I remember going to speak to her because I hated it so much. I'm like, what do I need to do? Like, and she's like, just read the lecture notes, and like just did not, like classic academic, did not want to engage. She just wanted to do her research. But I reckon we must have been there at the same time.
Yes.
So, Em, I think it's really interesting because if I'm listening to this podcast, so you did Tournament of the Minds, you threw yourself into all these extracurricular things. You just threw yourself into learning, school, and even then, when you went into year 12, you turned 18 early on, discovered freedom with a car, your P's, boyfriend, getting distracted, all the normal sort of things that can happen to people. And then you got to this score that you weren't happy with. So even though you do all this extra stuff, there's no guarantee, but whatever the score, that means enough to you. But then that still hasn't stopped you. So I just think for the listener, you had this really positive experience at school for the most part, except for the very end point, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that still hasn't stopped you, because I think if we think of like this transition that you took, so post-school, I was writing down here, so you struggled in years 11 and 12, you had some family separations and some issues, and actually had, if you don't mind me mentioning, about a family member passing away.
Yes, yeah.
And then you got that freedom with the license, you were partying, so you felt lost and then you ultimately missed out on those marks that you wanted, but you were clear that you wanted to go into biomedical science.
Mm-hmm.
So you found an alternate path. So you went into that problem-solving mode. I really want to come back to that, Loz, about finding out when you say problem-solving mode, like what does that actually look like? Because I think that'd be so helpful. So you found this way to go into biological science. So you pivoted, adjusted, got that. You then discovered there was a love of anatomy,
Yes.
which led you down the track. Someone started mentioning and talking to you about osteopathy.
Yep.
So then you adjusted again
Yeah.
and went in, did your bachelor's of osteopathy, which led to a master's of that.
Which is a very intense course. I had a few friends go through that course. It's super intense, isn't it?
Super intense. Yeah. So I remember
8 years in total, all of this journey.
8 years in total. And I remember the anatomy at Deakin was just an elective. So it wasn't even sort of part of the plan. But I sat in this anatomy lecture. I remember the guy's name was Jeff. He had this crazy beard. I was mesmerized, and I don't think I'd felt like that at school for a long, long time.
That's cool.
And I was just in love with it. And you know what? That really unlocked how I learned, because it was so many diagrams you would label, and then all of a sudden I was able to see the diagrams in the exam. Like I could close my eyes and actually...
And you're closing your eyes right now while you're telling.
I know, right? But like I just remember this like feeling of I can retain this, and you know, all the origins and insertions of the muscles and things, and it was like I can retain this information. This feels really downstream, like maybe this is my path. And I just loved anatomy so much that then a good friend of mine at the time was like, you should look at osteopathy.
Why did they suggest that, do you think?
Well, she was doing the course.
Gotcha.
So, and we were working together in our part-time job, and she was loving the course, and I was just talking to her about anatomy, and she's like, just have a look at it and see, because like I ultimately didn't know what I wanted to do with biomed or biological science. I thought I might go into research because we had lost my auntie to cancer, and I was just really passionate about alternative treatments to cancer. And you know, even at a young age, just seeing her go through the system, and, you know, she passed away with 2 young kids, and it really affected our family. So, and then when I found the anatomy, I was like, well, I love this so much that I want it to be a part of whatever I do. And I had a look at the osteopathy course, and it was very much about supporting the body holistically, looking at all of the different systems of the body and how they integrate. And I was like, this feels like my path. So again, applied for the course and went through the interview process. They only were taking about 35 students at a time. So it was a pretty hard course to get into. Yeah, so I went through the process, went through the interview, and I remember getting the phone call, and they were like, you were amazing in the interview. Osteopathy is for you, but your marks are not there.
Oh.
They said you have to go away for another year and come back to us, like raise your average.
In the biological science degree.
Yeah, which I wasn't enjoying, like the chemistry, the physics. Yeah, I just wasn't enjoying it. But with that as a really clear goal, I remember going, okay, you can do this. Let's go away and actually just nail it. And I struggled with all of that type of learning, with all of, just the specialist maths, and like, I just couldn't relate. But it was just a task, so I just had to get it done. And somehow, I don't even remember what I raised my grades to, but they were good enough to transfer over to osteopathy. So that was amazing. And in the first few years, when the load is really heavy, I was able to get a few credits.
And when you say the load is really heavy, in case someone's not familiar with that, do you mean the number of subjects you're having to do?
Yeah, the number of subjects, and also like the, anatomy, chemistry, like very heavy topics. I was able to get a few credits, which meant that I had a little bit more time to study, and I was working part-time. And so I didn't find the first year too bad of osteo, but then, year 2 and 3, it gets pretty full on, and you're learning how to manipulate necks and, like all of that stuff. So you're going home being practiced on all day.
Yes.
With your buddy, and you're also like, your nervous systems are overstimulated because you've been practicing manipulations on each other all day. But it was a really fun course. I found RMIT, found a good crew there. And I think that makes a difference too, doesn't it, when you're actually at university and you're making good friends and you're studying something you really love. And I remember really finding myself in that course and just knew that was where I was supposed to be.
That sounds similar, though, to what you did at school, is throwing yourself in. So I sort of get the sense that you're someone that chooses to lean in and get the most out of the thing that you're in as well.
All or nothing.
Is it all right if I jump back to that year? So when you found out you had to go back to a degree that you weren't really enjoying, you knew wasn't your thing.
Yeah.
So talk us through, how did you stick with it to get the grades to the point that you got them to, so you could get to where you wanted to? So someone can really get a clear understanding of what you did during that year.
Once I've got a clear goal set, then I'm great at reverse engineering a game plan. And I think that's a really important skill, right? Because if you just say, well, I need to get better marks, and you don't really have a game plan, then you're shooting before you aim. So for me, I remember, and again, I feel like this has gotten much better as I've grown up and used this skill many times, but I remember thinking, okay, what do I need to do? Who can I speak to? How can I improve X, Y, Z? And I remember going to some of the lecturers and being like, this is what I'm struggling with. What do I need to do to improve my marks? And because I had such a clear goal, it was like the how just became easier. It almost became like the work was irrelevant now, because I was getting into that course. I'd made a decision that I was transferring to osteo, and I really just had to find a way. Even if I was tuning out in a lecture or I felt like leaving early and just driving home, it was like, no, you've got such a clear goal now. So just listen, take the notes. I was starting to figure out how I could learn more effectively. So I had this big whiteboard, and that's how I would study. I'd have my textbooks and everything, but I'd be reading and like drawing concept maps and diagrams and trying to translate it to something visual that I could remember, because this was this new learning skill that I'd unlocked for myself, and falling asleep with whiteboard marker all the way up my arm, before exams. And just before I'd go into an exam, instead of looking at notes, I'd have these concept maps and I'd have visual things and prompts that I could recall. So it was also that time of, I think, learning how I learn more efficiently. And so that really helped me as well with unlocking that skill of, increasing my grades.
Can I ask, you said when you finished school, you were a bit directionless, lost. So you said that having direction allows you to reverse engineer and understand where you're headed. The other thing you mentioned too when you were lost is that you didn't have any sort of mentors or anyone around you, and so that's something you were seeking out. So I'm assuming that having good mentorship in your life is something that is also super supportive. How do you get a good mentor, and what do you look for in a good mentor?
Yes, great question. Look, I guess back then I do feel like I struggled to find a good mentor. I think that friend of mine that was suggesting osteopathy, she was a few years older than me and very much was clear on where she was going. And I do remember learning a lot from her and listening to her. But then, really leaning in on those one or two lecturers that were quite supportive. Moving through life, I think I've been really lucky in that somehow good mentors have sort of crossed my path. And I think, and they weren't necessarily like, oh, that's a really successful entrepreneur or this or that. I remember there was a great guy at our church that really took me under his wing. There was a really great guy, that I met through my husband. And when you look back, you think sometimes these great people are around you and you might be able to just lean on them for a good conversation or a bit of advice. There has definitely been stages where I've gone and paid for business coaches and mentors that have been for specific things like later in life. But I have been really, really lucky that either through community and even books, we're so lucky now. We've got books we can read and we've got people we can follow online and things like that sort of become mentors as well. I listen to Jim Rohn every day. I'd say he's definitely been a huge influence in my life. But mentors, they've been a game changer for sure.
Well, we were talking about this though, Dan, about this idea of luck, right? And I say that in inverted commas, like it's not really luck. I think you have to show up a certain way for people to be like, oh, this is a safe space for me to step in or for me to offer advice, or this person is open to. Don't you reckon, Dan? I don't think it's actually luck.
It's what you attract.
Well, it's funny that you even just said, I've had a few over my time. So I think sometimes people don't ever get really one, but it seems
yes.
I'm really interested because you said, I've had a few, and it sounds like, again, you leaning in or you're open enough to say, I don't know.
Yes.
Which sounds very different from what you said with high school.
Yes.
Very different.
If you could speak to your younger self, you said, I tell myself to speak up more, whereas it sounds the shift for you, for your life has been suddenly now you're speaking up or you're seeking help from other people.
Absolutely. And I think that there was, especially when I eventually finished university, I actually bought an established osteo clinic very quickly. So sort of was dived into the deep end and had to learn really quickly.
And you don't learn any of the business operations side or anything like that when you're studying osteopathy? So you go become a business owner?
Exactly. And I was so I actually was working at this osteo clinic for a year as the youngest associate. And then I bought the practice. Right. So here's the grad who's bought the business. The contractors are probably just thinking, this is going to be amazing. She's just going to have no idea what's going on and we'll just be able to run the show. And she'll, because there was about 15 contractors at the time and a couple of reception staff. And so here comes Em, and I decided I was going to get a business coach because I met this, again, a great lecturer at uni who was an osteo that had also become like a business coach. And I was like, there's a gap here. I don't understand how to run a business. So I enrolled this lady, and she really just helps me with the foundations of running a practice. And I was expanding things and changing things and firing people, and it was just this whole learning experience, and no one saw me coming. Like, it was just, my husband calls me the silent assassin. And it was just like, they just hadn't, because I was so like friendly and smiley and no problem. And then when it came time for business, I was like, all right, like, it's a business. I'm really good at separating commercial and personal. So I remember there was one person, I hope she never listens to the podcast, but there was this one person who, she was just doing things that weren't really integral. And, you're not supposed to really work closely in another clinic. Like, we've just got rules that we kind of respect. And you can always break the rules, but it's like, you shouldn't do that, right? If you're going to work at my clinic, you don't work at a clinic 1 kilometre down the road and start taking clients. Like, it's just something you don't do. So anyway, I remember sitting down with her and I was like, you're gonna have to finish up. And she was like, what? My heart was just like thumping in my chest. I would have been 26, guys, and this lady was probably in her 40s, really established practitioner. And I'm like, I'm really sorry, but today's going to have to be your last day. And I had all my ducks in a row. I knew what she would ask for, and I knew that it really showed everyone else in the clinic, okay, well, she means business. Like, she's not just going to be a walkover here. And I think having that business coach, like, literally I remember her coaching me before I walked into the meeting, and then coaching me as soon as I walked out of the meeting. And I was shaking like a leaf. But it was just that beginning of like, again, I know where I'm going. I know what I'm trying to achieve. There's going to be some uncomfortable learnings and uncomfortable conversations. But through the discomfort comes that growth. And then the practice just really grew from strength to strength. And, the right team came in that really respected each other and what we were trying to achieve. And it was such a cool learning curve that first few years in business. It was wild, but I loved it. And it's funny. It's just like the same problem solving abilities. It's just applied, but it's like a video game. There's always another level, isn't there?
Yeah, it's such a good way of describing it. I reckon Dan's noticed this too. The entire time you spoke, you had the most like grin on your face. The entire time you spoke about that, and your whole body language when you were talking about that really challenging moment, you actually looked like you were really proud of yourself. Yeah. Did you feel that? You really did, don't you think, Dan? She looked so proud.
The whole time you were talking about how hard something was.
But you were smiling.
Yeah. Yes. Like, well, it becomes addictive, doesn't it? I think for some people that are kind of wired in a weird way like that, where it's, you look back now and you think, oh, that was such a challenging circumstance at the time, but like I clocked that level,
Yeah.
And then, the next time something comes up, it's just like, it's no problem. Gosh, by the time, this is why I love now mentoring people regardless of what their business is. And I don't even, I just love having conversations with people and offering value with, especially when they're starting a new business and things they can think about, because that's what people did for me. And my husband had some really tough challenges. He had a gym, he went bankrupt with that gym, and not through, lack of personal effort. There was falling out with the landlord and it got really ugly. So now if someone comes to us and they're struggling with, something in their business, we're like, no problem. Like, let's actually sit down, pull it apart, look at some strategies, and like just offering some value, because that's all people have ever done for us once we were vulnerable enough to actually ask for help and just be in those circles of people that have walked the path before us. Yeah, and I think that the greatest gift you can give yourself is overcoming those challenges and becoming that next version of yourself. And I love helping other people do that now, whether it's, in their health, in their business. I just think if you can pass that value on to someone, which, I feel like I've been blessed to have a lot of people put in, input into us over the years. Yeah, I think we've just got to pass it on.
And Em, it's really interesting listening to what you're saying. There's been at different points in your life, you've unlocked and realized there's certain like thinking strategies or learning strategies that you've added to your toolkit that have helped you. So going from typical sort of study habits when you're at school of just trying to remember and somehow like summarize and write down. So then you realize like mind mapping, concept maps, different approaches. And now it even sounds like from business or like life-wise, it's the fact that you named reverse engineer. So you then break down what is it that I want. I can break it into small parts and then I work out the order I'm going to do it in. So it sounds like you've got all this expertise, strategies, ways of thinking, tools that you use. When you think of mentoring the different people you talk to, what are like some of the most common needs that you see that you have to help people with?
Definitely time prioritization. I think when you meet either a business owner, or I think back to myself even as a student who was trying to juggle part-time jobs, and it's like, let's just boil it right down to what are the 3 or 4 things that are going to move us towards our goal today, and let's knock those on the head really quickly, and then we'll get to everything else. So my favorite thing to do at the end of every day is like a brain dump of everything that's in your head, right? And this helps us as parents too, but dump everything on a piece of paper. And I'm old school, I'm still pen to paper. Like, I have to just get it out of my head.
But I think there's something in that. I think there's like a real connection between the hand and the brain though. I feel like that's a skill that's worth keeping.
For sure, right? And so I just dump all my thoughts, might be just in a journal or on a piece of paper, and then I can go through, and obviously you have like a clear goal of what you're trying to achieve, but then circling the 3 or 4 things that can help us move towards that goal and prioritizing those and not procrastinating on those. And then once you've done those, number 1, you feel like you've won the day. And then number 2, you have moved towards your goal. And so everything else that you get done that day just feels like icing on the cake, And I think even as a student, being able to actually learn to prioritize would be a really great skill, because we can beat down on this, that, and the other. But if you're procrastinating on the things that actually matter, you can feel busy, but not necessarily effective or aggressive.
Yeah, and busy on the wrong stuff, isn't it?
Yes. So I think that's probably a big one. I think actually having clear goals is also a huge thing that we see in a lot of people that we speak to is, goal setting is not necessarily something everyone does. Maybe they might, we actually create a vision board every New Year's Eve, my husband and I, now that we're not like raging because we've got a toddler. Do it on New Year's.
It's amazing how a toddler does it.
We do it either on New Year's Eve or like sometime we have to get it done before the clock ticks over to the new year. We make a vision board together and we put things on that's important to us as a family, important to us as individuals. And we also write out our goals in our journal. and we share our goals with each other. And it just gives us this GPS for the year, which I love. It's a really special thing that we do. And waking up on the 1st of the new year with a GPS set is such a good feeling in business, in life, in our relationship. And, you know, then you can recalibrate throughout the year as well. So I think, wow, what a skill that would have been to learn in school, what a skill to learn in business, what a skill to learn in marriage, like everything. I think if we've got clear goals and then we can prioritize how to move towards those goals, that's what I definitely see pop up in a lot of people that we mentor. And then, of course, you get the human being in all of us, which is the limiting beliefs and things we all have to work through and things that we're all carrying from childhood experiences, school experiences, and opening your school.
Yeah.
I love that idea of, limiting belief, because it sounds like for you, the mindset you have, and this is me checking if I've been listening correctly, is you actually see every opportunity of failure or something not going well, you don't let it limit you. So you actually say, well, what can I get from this? So you almost like have an expansion or like an expanding beliefs. Yeah,
it's like failing forward, right? Or we even pick up on our languaging a lot. It's like it's an opportunity for growth, versus in our business, if any of our team use the word hard, we just completely reframe that straight away. We're like, let's reframe that. Let's reframe that energy. It's not hard. It's challenging, but it's an opportunity for us to get better or improve our system, or just language is such a big thing too.
Huge.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, it matters so much. I remember some mates when we were all new dads, I used to hear them say, I have to do this. Like, I have to take my kids to child. And I remember saying, but what happens if you change to the word get? Like, I get to. So I remember that was suddenly like you just feel it. Just like, I love it. I get the opportunity to do this. And I really love your point about the really clear goals and also the importance of language. I remember at 21, I wanted to go on exchange while I was studying. And so I stuck up all around my parents' house. Must have done their head in. I printed out big sheets that said, I will be in at Boston College on exchange. So that's probably one of the first times like where I really had it clear. But I wanted to picture, and I remember picking the word will. It's not like I am. It's like, no, I will, because I wanted it to be really clear. And I'd stick it up at all the spots around the house, wherever I walked through. Just any spot where I knew my eyes would be. So like when I'd walk into my room, I had it on multiple points, or down near the kitchen. My mum and dad were so good. They never took them down. It bloody must have annoyed them. And my brothers didn't either. My sisters didn't either. But as you were saying that, it made me realize that was a game changer for me, because from then on, I made really clear goals as well, because it had a profound impact as well. Yeah. And the point that you made about language too.
Yes, so good. And again, what a life skill. It's like affirming, like, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm doing.
Can I try out a question? I don't know how it's going to go, but I'm going to try it. So imagine you're sitting down talking to the education minister.
Oh, yes.
Taking all that you know. So what would be like, so thinking of all that we've spoken about.
Yeah.
What would be, I don't know, the one or two things that you'd really say, this is what we need for education in Australia, or for all these young people to feel or be successful? These are the one or two things that we really need.
It's a really tough question, isn't it? It's a big question.
It's a huge question. I think you've really sprung that on her, Dan.
And it doesn't have to be like phonics. So it doesn't have to be like a teaching approach.
Oh, no.
Just something that's, if we could filter it down, just something that you think. And there's no right or wrong, right? It's just a perspective.
Yes. I think I'm an example of the fact that like life education is such an important piece to the puzzle. When I think back to school, and again, I did go to an amazing Catholic girls' school, I can't really recall an integration of life skills and life experience, and like everything was very structured, which I understand it has to be structured, but I feel most of my learning has come from life experience. So I don't know the answer of how we integrate that or bring more of like a reality experience to the structured learning. But I know for me, it was that style of learning just did not work for me. And maybe it wasn't the right school. I don't know. My mum went to that school, which is why I went to that school.
Yeah, and a legacy.
Yeah, and I think maybe it wasn't the right school for me. But I mean, in hindsight,
Would you change where you are today?
no. So it was all probably meant to be. But yeah, I think that what I would want for my son, which I now use as my guardrails, is I think about looking at the child that he is and then really understanding if it's the right school for him. And even us moving to the peninsula, like that was a decision we made to create some more space for our family. And yeah, just looking at the child and actually figuring out, is this the right framework and is this the right environment? So I don't know if that's not really the education minister.
Yeah, I think fit for purpose, right? Like really, is education fulfilling and purposeful to the needs of our kids?
Yes.
And listening to what you're saying too, it sounds like building connections to industry, like so that learning can become real. Because we've been talking recently to a principal who we just interviewed. That's one of the things she's working on, is fostering more connections so that
to industry, integrating and bringing industry to
make
students.
Learning real. So it's just, and I love teaching, but like, so you can connect it so that kids can see the real connection between me learning this and then what does that actually look like?
And what I was noticing too, when you talked about structure, you had your hands in a particular way and it looked like it was actually the idea of it being compartmentalized, right? And small in a box. And I think that's the thing when we think about life, is that education doesn't happen in siloed moments. It's throughout. It's constantly going on and it's moving between one situation to another. I'd love to hear what you think you've learnt the most from leaving a traditional education setting. Like, where have you learnt the most, or what have you learnt?
After school. I think that further to what you were just saying as well about the structure, and then I'll pick up on that question, but I'd love for school to build the human, like to build the child, because I remember finishing school and it feeling so overwhelming going from the structure to the big world. But wouldn't it be amazing if it was like the child was so ready to leave school because you've actually built the human being, like you've built the self-esteem, you've built the clarity, you've built the excitement for what's next after school. And it's not such a big overwhelming thing because you're like, I'm ready to spread my wings and run out of those gates and feel like I'm ready. So I think for me, even though I felt ready to leave school, it was still such an overwhelming process to not have that place to go, not have your friends, not have all those things around you, and then not having the score and then ending up in a different course. That's why I just felt like I was lost for a few years. But in the lack of clarity and in the time of feeling lost, that's where I learnt the most, because you start to develop that resilience and develop the problem solving. And I feel like definitely if I look back to, some of those huge things that I was overcoming at the time as a young adult, that's where we learn the most. Like we have to lean into the discomfort to grow, right? And I just say to my husband all the time, like I feel like we've already lived a lifetime of discomfort, but we also have a beautiful life because of it, because we're not afraid to take risks. We're not afraid to do hard things. We're not afraid to work hard for a life that we want to build and what we want to build for our son and leave behind. So I'm grateful that we have had so many challenges early on, because I do believe it's brought the best out in us, and I feel like I'm still young.
So when a failure has happened, so let's say that business went bankrupt, like that could just be the end of the story. That's it. Like, and pack up and whereas you've chosen to say, well, that's just a point along the way. So it's just literally picking yourself back up and then going, okay, so what do we want to do differently? We're going to take from this because it's already happened.
Yes.
So what's the lesson we can take to navigate and do things a bit differently?
And the lesson, I mean, even translating business into something that was, I guess, one of our biggest challenges was our IVF challenges, which is not at all related, but totally related, because our decision was to start a family. It wasn't, let's try and have a baby. Our decision was to start a family. So Mark and I thought, okay, well, we'll go down this IVF path, and 5 years went past, 20 cycles, insane amount of time, energy, money, everything. But it was still, the decision is to start a family. So we ended up having success and having our son. But it was like, okay, well, if this path doesn't work, what does a family look like next? Is it adoption? Is it surrogacy? It's that same problem solving skill and that same resilience applied into everything, right? So even though it starts when you don't get the score you want, it's like that skill and overcoming that challenge. I think that is just a muscle that builds and builds and builds. So yes, losing the business or, losing a family member and all these things we go through, it's a muscle. The more that we lean in and use it, the better we can overcome the next mountain.
I always say to my kids, there's always a solution.
Yeah.
It may not be number 1, 2, 3 on your list, but you will always, it might actually just be a shift in mindset. That could actually be the solution to this situation. You might actually not have to action anything. It might be just the reframe is the solution, right? But there's always a solution to any situation, anything sticky that we get ourselves into, kind of like a course, right? Like maybe you don't get preference 1, but let's reframe, let's consider there's always a way to move. We're never stuck anywhere, ever. Exactly.
And I like that language too, Loz, because you said a solution, not the solution. That's the thing too, right? You keep
language
open. Always matters.
Yeah.
Yes.
The thing that I'm listening, so for the person that's listening, it's really fascinating because they're probably walking away with like quite a number of different ways of thinking. I love the idea of like that reverse engineering. So you think, I want to get really clear. What is it that I really want? Not just like, what do I think I want? It's like, well, no, this is it. And you get really clear about being able to see it. Probably really good for the dopamine hits too. So you can see you're making progress. And then you reverse engineer. So you go, okay, so what do I need to work backwards to achieve? And then there's these parts where you also, it sounds like the strategy you have is you draw upon previous times when it either hasn't worked or it has worked to say, well, this didn't work or this worked or this is what I learned from it, so I know I can keep going. Have I got that right? Is that like a helpful thing that you do? You think back to the past and then use that to help you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can look back and think, well, I've achieved this before. I've learnt this about myself before, and I can do it again and I can apply it to something else. So, and leaning on other people's experience too, right? That's the beautiful part about mentor and community. It's the fastest way we can learn is also incorporating other people's experiences. And again, for me, learning to speak up and learning to ask for help and not being afraid to know my weaknesses and draw on people that, can help in situations where you could, have others work through things with you. I just think as I'm getting a little bit wiser and into my 40s, my ego is just, it's not as, it doesn't hold me back as much anymore. If I'm struggling with something, I'm just like, hey, this, that, it doesn't matter what it is. But yeah, I just think I've never been more appreciative of the quality people I have around me that can really help. So
there's some really interesting, that might be interesting to some people, right? So there's some interesting research around coaching.
Yes.
And one of the key things when you look at professional learning, so typical professional learning, we go attend a seminar or a workshop, someone stands there, lectures and tells us. So that has pretty much a negligible effect of going to transfer the learning. So a very small percentage, it's like 10% sort of thing.
Oh.
Whereas back in the late 90s, early 2000s, they did this really key research, Joyce and Showers, and the highest thing that you can have is with peer-to-peer coaching, where if someone's partnering with you, the effect size of you actually learning and then going to use it is 95% of the people that go do it. So it's the best form of professional development you can do where you're learning alongside one another. So listening to what you're saying, mentoring, coaching, it makes sense because you're learning something new. Then you went and applied it. You went and had to have those really tricky conversations with people. They're probably less tricky for you now because you've done it so many times, right? But to someone else, now you probably have that conversation with them.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating listening to that idea that you've had mentors and coaches that have supported your development. So it almost sounds like a guaranteed thing that you're going to be successful because you constantly keep doing this and tapping into it. So it is interesting, isn't it, Loz? Interesting.
I think
research,
it is
the word interesting.
No, but I also think too, it comes back to that idea of being seen fully too, because I think that if you listen to someone on a stage speaking, you're not integrating it, you're not interacting in that way, but one-on-one. And you mentioned it even at school that you did have a couple of teachers that really saw you. And had you had the confidence, you could have gone to them. So I think that that's that idea of, that peer-to-peer coaching, mentoring, whatever, to be fully seen. I think that's where you have the bravery maybe and the support and the feeling to, I could actually make that progress.
Yes, yeah, for sure. And I think also that's probably one more thing I'd say about something we could instill in our kids is success is like the measurable progress towards your goals. It's not always just the end outcome or the score or the win. It's like there's success in the journey as well, which I think we can teach them that through sport. We can teach them that through learning. We can teach them that through, cleaning the house. Like we can teach them that through everything. It's like success is actually in the journey.
Yeah.
Which, especially if they're wired as like a high achiever or a type A, or, building that self-image and that self-belief from such a young age, from reframing what success actually is.
Well, you said, that's what you get to do. We hope schools do, but certainly as a parent, we get to build the human.
Yes.
That's what you said. I think that's a really beautiful way of considering parenting. It's not like we create success. We're actually building a fully formed human being alongside them.
Yeah.
That keeps changing
Correct.
throughout time.
Correct.
I love that idea. Success is in the end. It's the actual progress.
Yes.
I'm definitely trying to learn that as a 40-year-old now.
Yeah.
He's a new to the 40 club. Look at him over there.
I know. More grey hairs, and then the same week that I turned 40, I twinged my hamstring. Anyway, let's not make this about me. So final thing, I've really, really loved this conversation. It's been so insightful. Something that we do at the end is to find out. So if you think of the listener, what's something that we haven't asked you about that you think would help the listener?
The listener. Well, I feel like we've covered quite a lot, but I would say one thing that I wish I started doing a lot earlier, even at school, which actually probably picks up on that last piece of the conversation, is a mentor taught me only a handful of years ago that the most productive thing we can do for our self-image and our self-belief is actually documenting our wins every day. So rather than thinking about what you didn't get done or what you didn't achieve, writing down some things that you did well every day, even if it's one or two things. And that might be as simple as, today I had a really great conversation with Loz and Dan, or
thank you.
I had a really present afternoon with my little boy, or I got my workout in today, or I read 5 pages of my book. And just by, it seems really insignificant, but by documenting your wins, you're building your self-image. And that helped me as an adult. But I think, wow, imagine, again, applying that with your kids and teaching them like that is actually a direct tool that you could apply to start to build your confidence and your self-image from like a really young age. So I think now, every time I put Mavi in the bath, I'm like, what was your favourite part about today? What did we do well? And it just makes fire engine sounds at me. So but we're practicing. We're playing the long game.
Yeah.
So I think, as a listener, there's no greater gift we can give ourselves than like building that self-image, because whatever school, work, business, life throws at us, if we're solid in here, in our heart and in our mind, then...
Great way to finish it.
Thank you so much, Em.
How do you feel about crisp high fives? Are you pro high fives?
Em would love a high five.
Like
Can
a
we-
little crisp one.
Yeah, can we do it?
Yeah.
We put a lot of pressure on that. Can we try?
Dan loves
The
it.
crisp one connects.
You ready?
Like,
That's overrated. I reckon that's up there as probably the best.
I agree, Eric. And that could be the top one.
Thank you so much. It's been an
thank
absolute
you,
pleasure.
guys.
If you know someone similar to Em or different to Em that has a story to share, please reach out to us at morethanascorepod@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram. We're on the Instas, aren't we, Laura?
Yeah.
At More Than a Score Pod.
We are.
On the gram.
Some new merch too.
Oh, and
Yes.
check out the merch. Yes, I surprised
Yes.
Laura with some jumpers that I whipped up. Well, I did nothing, but I should say Thread Traders out in Seaford. They were wonderful.
There you go.
So,
There you go.
great
There's some
Thread Traders.
free advertising.
Sure. Yes, that's it. Absolutely. Hashtag ad. But thank you so much. You've been really
Thank
amazing.
you, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, that is More Than a Score. Good job, Ed.
Yay.
Nice